All right, guys, it's your man King Nubian with Men of Purpose, where our abundance is for your lack. Stepping out on the Demons and Disciples podcast this early in the morning at 2:41 a.m. Been kind of playing around with a couple things, trying to get some things right so that we can finally be prepared to go online, live, broadcast, all that cool stuff, right? So tonight we're going to talk about something that I've run into several people had debates on, and that is Omertà versus the blue wall. Now, for those of you who may have been under a rock the last 100 or so years, Omertà is a code of silence that's typically associated with organizations of crime, organized crime, gangs, mobs, quote unquote, or some sort of criminal organization. And the blue wall is referring to the police in the United States. I would imagine that the blue wall extends to police globally. It's basically the same type of thing as Omertà with the criminals, where if someone inside that organization is doing something that's not on the up and up, it's illegal, it's criminal, and they're under investigation, other members of the organization, whether or not they're involved in the criminal activities, refuse to be witnesses against their fellow either police officers or criminals. So what that means is somebody from a gang or somebody from a recognized group of criminals gets caught doing something, and the authorities come in and say to someone else who did not get caught doing that thing but knows some information about the thing that their members got caught doing, said, hey, we need you to be a witness against this person. And yes, you're going to have to testify in court. And yes, you're going to have to face that person and say, I saw you, or I heard you, or I'm a witness to you doing, saying, blah, blah, blah. And those people automatically say, no, I'm not doing that. Or if they do agree to do it, once they get in court, they're being intimidated, either visually, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, financially, or violently, in a lot of cases, through their families and loved ones, circle of influence, to make them not want to be witnesses against them, right? But here's the flip side of that. Cops do the same thing. Cops don't always overtly choose violence. Let's put quotes on that. They don't always just blatantly, go to your parents' house or your aunt's house or where your cousins work and just shoot up the place. No, what they do is they'll block you from promotions if you're a fellow cop and you see some cop doing something bad. You see some cop abusing a suspect. You see them oppressing someone, obviously being using discriminatory practices and techniques against someone, stealing money from a crime scene, setting criminals up, ratting on these criminals because they're on the payroll of those criminals, that sort of thing. When cops see other cops doing that and they want to do something about it, they want to stand up and do the right thing, God forbid they do what cops are supposed to do, and that's stop crime, oh no, oh my, then there's this feeling of disdain toward the cop that's actually trying to stop the crime and the activities of the other cops who are committing those crimes. And they throw up what's called a blue wall. And the blue wall means that if you're the cop who's going against another cop or group of cops, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter if you actually saw them, caught them, heard them, witnessed them, whatever, doing a crime, if that crime is as minimal as jaywalking, or if that crime is as serious as murder, rape, kidnap, skimming several large amounts of money off the top of a drug bust, selling drugs, conspiring against other people, whether they be cops or not. It doesn't matter what you as a fellow cop are going to witness against other cops for. Your career is in the crapper, right? You're not going to get that promotion to detective first grade that you worked your behind on. And you're a great detective, you figured this out, but that doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to get that advancement to lieutenant or captain or whatever it is you're hoping to get. You're not going to be able to be comfortable in your precinct anymore, or any precinct, once they find out that you're a rat on other cops, once the jacket is on you, right? We're going to put a pin in the blue wall. Let's talk about Omertà. Omertà is typically a lot more overtly violent. It's going to be more of an immediate consequence, and typically it's pretty final. The consequences there usually result in someone losing their access to breathe and commune with the living for much longer. Criminals have usually a lot more to lose in that immediately all of the force, all of the brunt of the authorities, of the powers that be, are going to be thrown at them. Now, I said that intentionally, that criminals immediately and initially have more to lose because their freedom is at risk, their funds are going to be stopped, access to them anyway. There's going to be a grip tightening around their movements in those particular areas where they're suspected of something. Their bank accounts, if they have any, are going to be frozen, or any other assets and properties, they're going to be looked at a lot more keenly by the authorities because, you know, they're criminals, and the agreed upon consensus is that if you're a known criminal and you're suspected of doing criminal activities, then odds are you're probably guilty, right? And if you are a criminal who's snitching on other criminals, it doesn't matter if they do something to you anyway. You were a criminal to begin with. So yeah, we're gonna leverage you and all those things that we think or know that you're doing, and we're gonna tell you, instead of you getting 100 years, we'll give you 50 years. And you start to think, well, maybe I'll get out when I'm 85 or whatever. And you start thinking of everything that you can tell, all the people that you can roll the bus on to try to get that 50 years even lower, so that when you finally do get out, you'll have some sort of a life that you can live. Not realizing that you're likely never going to get out because you're probably going to get murdered while you're in there, right? Even criminals who don't have anything to do with your enterprise don't like criminals who snitch, right? Now, here's where I find the irony. Remember I told you we were going to go back to the blue wall. But before we go back to the blue wall per se in and of itself, let's talk about when I said criminals initially and immediately have the worst end of it, right? Long term, if a criminal can somehow, some way survive the snitching, telling on another criminal, if they can, at the end of the day, they're still criminals. That's kind of the behavior that's expected overall. I mean, obviously there's honor among thieves type of thing where there used to be. These people nowadays, they're a different breed, but that's a whole other story. If a criminal is somehow able to escape the wrath of the criminal community by turning state's evidence on someone, then their life can actually be better. They can be behind bars and they can still live the same quality of life that they lived on the outside in many extents, right? Conversely, if you're a police officer or associated in any way with law enforcement, and you get that jacket upon yourself as being a snitch, or if you're not locked up in a snitch as a law enforcement member or former law enforcement member, but you are incarcerated for whatever you did amongst those criminals that you and your ilk put away, then your life is only going to get worse. If you're locked up as a law enforcement official or former, you have to go completely to the other side in order to survive. You have to just decide to fully embrace being a criminal. You have to bring all your tools, all your access to figuring out how you captured those guys to them, and so you can be an asset to now the criminal side of it, because you can't be in prison standing on being a member of law enforcement when you're locked up with the very people that you have committed yourself to, be against. That's not going to bode well for you. But if you're a snitch, meaning that you're a person who you're that cop who decided to say something about those bad cops, you get treated actually worse on the outside. And you're not getting treated worse by people in your neighborhood. You're not getting treated worse by your grocery. You're not getting treated worse by your church parishioners or by your co-workers. Well, you are getting treated that way by your co-workers because your co-workers are cops. But you're getting treated very, very badly by your co-workers, by your counterparts, because it doesn't matter all of the good things you did when you were on the street arresting legitimate criminals. It doesn't matter all of the programs you may have initiated and all of the lives you may have touched and all of the people that you may have changed their perception of by having them see you doing good deeds as a cop, having them see you be a stand-up member of a police force, having you actually embody what those commitments made are supposed to be. They don't care about that. All they care about is that you stood against them and told them their buddy, who was actually a criminal, who was actually doing things wrong to people, who was raping girls, who was having people killed, who was selling dope, who was doing all kinds of debauchery and bad things. But because he had a badge on and wore a uniform, they felt like, we just look the other way. We'll talk to him. We'll have an intervention. Because clearly and surely, because he decided to go through the academy and pass, that automatically, in their eyes, and this is real, makes him not only a better person than anybody else who's not in their club, who's not in their gang, because let's just call it what it is. It makes them a more important person in the regards of worthy of being saved, worthy of being given chance after chance after chance after chance. Now, let's go back and talk about how being a participant or a practitioner of the blue wall mentality is no different than being a practitioner of Omertà. But here is where perception lies, right? Anyone who is police or anyone who stands on the side of what is perceived in this country to be just and right and law-abiding will always try and tell someone who's associated, whether it be tightly or loosely, with the criminal element, that if you're telling on somebody for the greater good, if it's going to save somebody, if it's going to prevent a crime, if it's going to get a criminal off the street, then that's not really snitching. That's doing your civic duty. Now listen, Jamarcus, I know that, you're a part of the rolling 20s and that you don't really want to tell on little TT and them, but trust me, that drive-by shooting that they did the other day is only going to get worse, because Pork Chop and them are going to come back, and it's going to be Pork Chop kill some of TT and them's crew, and then TT and them kill some of Pork Chop's crew, and before you know it, nobody's got a crew. You have information to stop this. Well, go ahead and tell on them, if you know what I mean. And then after you tell on them,
Go back to your house in that same neighborhood where you have to see these gangs on either side, and hey man, we wish you the best. I mean, we're not going to come in and save you or anything. We're not going to give you any money or send you to school or relocate you or anything. This is just some local stuff that you need to tell. And I tell you what, if you don't tell, that jaywalking thing you got, we're going to trump it up to something crazy and you're going to screw up your whole future.
Right? This is what all the law-abiding citizens, all the law enforcement personnel are telling this poor kid, right? Meanwhile, it doesn't matter how many people police officers kill, it doesn't matter how many people they abuse, it doesn't matter how many times they've stolen, it doesn't matter how many times they've broken the law. The only thing that matters is that they are part of the club. They are a member of the blue gang, right? They are indoctrinated. They're made men and women. It's no difference. It's no different than being a made person or the equivalent of being made, you know, if that's even a thing. I mean, that's a Hollywood thing, right? But the equivalent of it, right? If you are indoctrinated into the blue uniform, you're a made person and you're expected to behave the same exact way that a gang member would behave, that a mobster would behave, that a street tough would behave, that a common thug would behave. If you get caught operating outside of the parameters of whatever it is we say we do, meaning if you're a criminal and you get caught being a criminal, or if you're a cop and you get caught being a criminal or doing criminal activities, then the rest of the people in your organization, whether or not they are privy to what you were doing, whether or not they benefited from it, whether or not they participated in it, they're expected not to say a word. And not only are they not expected to say a word, here's the thing that really trips me out about this very, very conceited way of thinking, you know. Not only are they expected to not say anything, push comes to shove, they're expected to stand up for these bad cops. They're expected to rally for them. They're expected to, if they need to, omit information when questions are being asked. They're expected to embellish information if it's going to make their counterparts look better on paper, sound better in court. They're expected to outright lie in cases to provide alibis, to make it seem like or appear like this person was somewhere that they were not, so that it can be proven that they were somewhere where everyone who is telling on them knows that they were, right? It's insane. And then it gets even worse because the justification from the higher ups, from the brass, you know, people like to talk about the brass is always going to be the people at the top in whatever profession you're in, and the people who are associated with the cops, but not necessarily cops themselves. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. The politicians, you know, your local politicians, your deputy mayor and your mayor, your alderman, your congressman, depending on how large your city is. Here are the excuses they start saying, well, you know, if we tell the truth on Officer Sullivan, every arrest he's ever been involved in is now going to be subject to overturn. And that means every prosecutor who touched those cases, their cases are going to be subject to be overturned. Every judge who had those cases, their cases, even the ones that don't involve them, like, who cares? That's not our fault. You are so worried about trying to police other people, and you can't even police your own precinct. Now, how is it? I mean, and I want us to take this seriously. A precinct, no matter what size it is, because a precinct is supposed to be, you know, per capita, equipped to deal with the area that it's positioned in. How is it, whether you have a super large precinct or you have a super tiny one, we as citizens are expected to believe that you can police whatever area you're supposed to be designated to properly, accurately, fairly, and indiscriminately when you won't even police the space between the walls of your precinct, right? You won't even do that. And we're supposed to believe that you're not bigots when you go to certain neighborhoods and behave certain ways that you wouldn't in other neighborhoods. We're supposed to believe that you don't profile. We're supposed to believe that you don't do traffic stops that you allege are random, which aren't random. We're supposed to believe that you don't have a preconceived notion about certain people in certain areas who dress a certain way, who look a certain way, who sound a certain way. Because, I mean, surely you can be fair. Surely you can be unbiased, like you're supposed to, in these neighborhoods, which are, 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 times larger than your precinct, when you don't even do it in your own precinct. Surely, I mean, because it stands to reason if you can't do it in a place that's dramatically smaller, where everybody's supposed to be on the exact same page, where everybody's supposed to be adhering to the highest standard of upholding the law. If you can't do it there, I mean, you must be able to do it everywhere else, where people who aren't trained are going to be frequented, people who very well may be on the other side of the law, people who are not expected to be intelligent, people who are not expected to know the law, people who are not expected to behave in the same standard as a police officer is supposed to behave. Surely, if you can't control your own people, we should realistically expect you to be able to control the public, to police them. Now, obviously, I'm being facetious. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic. Because as dumb as that whole perception is how dumb this organization thinks that the American public is. Okay, here's something that's going to sting American public. That's how dumb you sound when you believe that. Ooh, he didn't say that. Yeah, he did. He said that, girl. He said that. Now, first thing people are going to think, oh, he's probably one of those defund the police thing. It's so funny when you have no argument, the first thing you go to is the loudest argument or the loudest opposition to whatever yours is. I would implore whoever says something that asinine to do a little research. I'm going to come back and we're going to do another topic about law enforcement. And we're going to talk about some things that I promise you most of you don't know. I'm not going to unbury the lead by telling you about it now, but this won't be the end of this particular subject matter, okay? This broadcast here. But when you talk about Omertà and you try to, and not when I say you, I mean the powers that be, authoritative entities and organizations. They try to vilify that whole practice, and they want to talk about how harmful it is and how dangerous and what a shame it is for anybody to hold dear to some sick code when citizens are being hurt as a result of it. Why is that same disdain and disgust for the practice not aimed at the biggest game in this country? And that's the police. Because they practice Omertà openly, blatantly, better than anybody who's ever done it. They do it better than anybody, and they don't care. That's the thing. They have laws in place to say that they can do this without even being prosecuted. Now, try that on for size. Gangs don't have that. Mafias don't have that. Triads don't have that. I can go on and on. There's no law in place that says, hey, I can go out there and kill somebody because I'm scared, even though I'm supposed to be trained, and you can't convict me. I'm a part of the blue wall, right? We can't do that. So this blue wall nonsense is no different than Omertà. With one glaring difference. Yeah, it is different. I take that back. It is different in that It's been protected. It's been used as a scapegoat. It's been sanctioned as a tool to whitewash bad behavior of cops. And that's the facts. And see, here's the thing. Whether or not you agree with me is really inconsequential, because I don't talk from a place of opinion. I speak from a place of fact. It's evidentiary data. It's provable, right? And anytime anybody wanted to challenge me, all they got to do is step up. They could reach out to us, and I got receipts, baby. I will show you some receipts. And what I don't want to hear, and what I'm not going to listen to, is how you feel about something. I don't care how many generations of cops you come from. It's still a game. I doubt that most people even know what they've aligned themselves with. And here's another cop out. Well, things may start off a certain way, but this is how it is now. It's not, that would be embarrassingly romantic if that were the case, but it's not. The police entity in America is behaving and functioning exactly the way it was intended. Ooh. As bad as it is, as broken as it is, as lopsided as it is, as bigoted as it is, it's performing exactly the way it was intended. Yeah, that's gonna mess a lot of y'all up. We're gonna come back to this. I have a feeling that this won't be the last time we talk about the Blue Wall versus Omertà. We also have a topic coming up involving this organization that you guys are gonna really like, because it's gonna wrap in a couple more organizations too. I can't wait for that. I almost did that one tonight, but I changed my mind. Tonight was more or less about making sure I got my mini mics working, which I do. Making sure I got my camera angles working, which I did not. I'm disappointed about that. I did not. I have a couple of camera angles, but they're not working the way I wanted them to work. And basically about, seeing how well I would be able to do a show if I were on the road. I'm on the road right now. I'm traveling, my son and I. So I'm not in our typical studio. These surroundings are high, but you could probably tell that I'm in a hotel, and I'm not in our luxurious plush appointments that I'm used to. However, after we look at this, we'll determine whether or not it was something that we can work with, and we'll tweak it accordingly, make the necessary adjustments, and go from there. Again, this is a Men of Purpose podcast where our abundance is for your lack. And I'm King Nubian. The name of the podcast is Demons and Disciples. And I am very, very excited to announce all the cool stuff that we have coming out, all the merchandise we have coming out, all the opportunities that we have for local movers and shakers in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and in Atlanta, Georgia, where we are stationed. I'm excited about all the inroads and the connections that we made, helping the disenfranchised, the at-risk, the overlooked, the downtrodden, the oppressed, the forgotten. And more than anything, I am super, super proud to be associated with a group that understands that the plights and situations that we find ourselves in, and when I say we, I mean melanated people in this country, is largely our own fault. Ooh, that's gonna hurt some of us. What you mean it's our fault? We've been oppressed, we did 40 acres and the mules, Whitey did this, bobbity, blip, blip, blap. Yeah, man, all that stuff is true. All that stuff is true, but at some point, you have to stop whining and crying and start doing something about it, right? At some point, you just have to ask yourself when you're gonna do it. Omertà versus Blue Wall. At the beginning, I asked what the difference was. I'm telling you that there's very, very little difference, except that one is legally sanctioned and the other is not. It's the same. One we know is associated with gang life and criminal activity. The other we also know to be associated with criminal activity, but I contend that the biggest gang in the United States by the police, and they behave accordingly. If you think I'm lying, I challenge you to come into my show and prove me wrong. My name is King Nubian. This is Men of Purpose, Demons and Disciples podcast, and I look forward to the next time we chat. Peace.